Rigler, and I am a crypto. Crypto is not quite the right word. I'm a Web3 blockchain um, promoter, enthusiast, hacker, you might say. And what this means is I am interested in a distributed way for us to communicate with each other that cuts out what I like to call a middleman, right? So that would be we're able um, to find each other on the internet. We're able to interact with each other privately, and we're able to trust each other, and without having to, for example, have Facebook, right? You can know who I am without Facebook saying, "Yeah, that's the right guy." Okay, that cuts out. They're no longer responsible for that, and they're no longer necessary. Okay, that's a big shift, and a big part of how this works is you can sign messages or transactions, which is just a special kind of message, with cryptographically with your own computer. Now, I have on this demonstration, I have turned off the network. So I've loaded up web pages, and they can do this, they can function without being connected to the network. And in fact, I can even copy the web pages to different locations. You can host almost all of this on your own computer or in this IPFS space, which is basically content-based addressing. It's similar to maybe, let's say, BitTorrent, right? And but the point is this is something we can do together. In a couple cases, you act like you're the server, and I'm always looking for different ways to do this, different tools, and JavaScript, what I call vanilla JavaScript, which doesn't require a server um, running. Is often part of my solution. And today I want to show you 3 websites that I think are epic. They are incredible, and also in some ways you can see that over time they have, you could almost say, failed, except they still work. But you can see clearly that the people that wrote this have moved on. They've moved on to other things. Why is that? Why aren't these things that I'm celebrating more widely understood? And it all comes down to everybody's favorite mechanism, capitalization, right? If you can't create capital, then you're nothing in this world. Well, I would argue against that. I would argue, and I would say that by remembering these things and keeping this information, we can build something in a communal way, right? Instead of relying purely on these capital mechanisms, which it's great that you can get a package in 3 hours delivered to your door. However, there are downsides to Amazon. There's downsides to these large players, and also when you think about technology, why are you using technology? Are you learning technology so that you can go work for somebody else who is a capitalist who will extract more value from you than what they're paying and maybe lay you off at some point? Or are you building something bigger than yourself in new and exciting ways? Excuse me. So this first site, bitaddress.org, and this is all, I call it vanilla JavaScript, and it allows you to, it creates a Bitcoin address. You can probably, I don't know if you can give it a seed here. You certainly could because you have access to the code. But see if you say generate new address, And again, this, see, it just created a new Bitcoin address. That's the public part. And here is the secret private key that you would use to create the address. And this page makes the jump from here to here using all sorts of cryptographic algorithms. The one comes to mind most is called RIPEM MD 160, I believe. And then, of course, SHA 256 encryption. And another technology that's a big part of this is base 58. That's what you see here, right? These are numbers, and they're numbers they're numbers made in a 58 numeral, maybe, number system, okay? So base 10, right? Base 10 is 10 digits, 0 and then 1 to 9. Hexadecimal is 16. That includes A to F. 58 has a whole bunch more. And in fact, there's another one that is base 64. Base 64, however, has one character in particular that is troublesome, and that is the slash. So you can't really have a... So there's some confusion, right? That's why we often use base 58. Base 58 also eliminates confusion visually about the difference between a 0 and a capital O or a 1 and a capital I by banning banning those, right? It bans the capital O. I think it bans the 0. It does, and so that's from the 64. That's how you get down to 58. Anyway, that's what we see here. And again, this, even though you're going to this website, it's important to understand that they can't see your key. You can understand that because it's JavaScript, and you can look at the JavaScript, which is what I'm doing here in this window, and it's quite long. It's a lot. They put everything into this page, including tests. They have a test suite. They have references to other open source efforts. You can see, you can sort of peer at some point when you begin to see these. Well, these are the tests, but when you begin to see these long lists of numbers, you'll see it supports different languages. This is quite elaborate, and this is all free. But in part of this, and as I'm talking, maybe I'll be able to find it. You'll see what I would call the elliptical graph, let's say, of prime numbers or something. I mean, it's beyond my level of understanding, but I just know that, I know what RIPEM MD is. I know that you can have functions, and those are in here, right? So you can grab these functions. Of course, they're open source. You'd want to give credit, to the people that created them. Okay, so this is one of them. Like I say, if you can just generate a new address there, and let's see. Here's another one. Oh, this is so old. It's before GitHub. The code is saved in this Google Code Archive. But of course, I believe that this code now should go into Web3 itself, which is something I'm passionate about doing, and I'm looking to partner with all sorts of folks to do that. And it's not easy. It's not easy to convince people that this is of value, because they'll say, "Oh, John, sorry, like, for example, with a college, I need to stress that from a purely academic point of view, this is important stuff. Many of the skills that you're going to pick up analyzing stuff like this are transferable to some job that you might have working for somebody else, but also, again, I believe that we can now move towards building things ourselves, especially with AI, which is a game changer. You know, if people say AI will take away jobs, AI also enables things like this, except you have to still have some folks involved, and that can be you, right? People who aren't traditional coders can now do things that we couldn't before. These are all factors to think about. This is a big conversation. So anyway, that's one of them, is bit address. Let's see. Here's another one. This one is, it says, sign and verify messages with Bitcoin. So while this bit address, this was purely about creating a key pair, right? And then again using algorithms like RipeMD to step you through that process. This one says, this one is about, shows you how to sign a message using a Bitcoin address. And I've done a lot of stuff about signing messages in this new world, which I generally call EVM, Ethereum Virtual Machine. Ethereum is more geared towards saying, okay, we are not just a cryptocurrency, we are a programming, you can program stuff in this. A lot of people, myself included, say, well, that's great, but crypto is the public blockchain, and you can code things into crypto, and you can also store data there, and you can use tools like JavaScript or other things that might run on your machine, right? For example, I'm very interested in the Godot gaming API because I believe that that can be used for more than gaming, because it runs on your computer. It has C Sharp, C++, its own language, and in fact, you can even hook things like JavaScript into it, right? I see that as a very interesting, what you might call a hacker tool. But anyway, there's a private key, there's a message, you sign it, and this is your signature. And then this allows you to basically verify that, right? So if somebody else, so if you know these things, then you give them to somebody else, they can verify that you were the one that signed it without knowing. See, to verify it, you don't know the private key, right? And the private key here can be the one that you get from here, right? So it's very easy. You don't have to have a special wallet or anything to do this stuff. And then finally, this one, TP's Go Bitcoin Test. This is the first one I saw, and I'd have to give credit to Eric Erstu, I believe is his name, from Estonia, and he used this as part of a demonstration, and basically what he was saying was that a certain sort of Bitcoin developer, let's say, or hacker, would, instead of going through the whole process, they would shove data, I think, into maybe step 3 or step 4, right? So instead of this being an actual address, they would have a payload of data that they would simply put in a base 58 format, stick it in here, and that would create an address that essentially was unspendable, not obviously unspendable, but they would create a transaction with hundreds and hundreds of lines of this, and you read it in order, and you can pull out the data, right? That forced the expansion of what I call the op return field, which Bitcoin and other currencies like Bitcoin process using something that's often called fourth-like. There's a bunch of data packed together, and that is how, when you verify a Bitcoin address, you give instructions in the transaction to do that. And those same instructions are given over and over again, billions of times, until they change the algorithm, and then the instruction changes a little bit. I created one that was, I guess, similar. I created one that you didn't have to have a key to decrypt, and I put it on the Satoshi Vision ledger, and could then immediately see that other people had done the same. And some bot realized that in me doing that, plus the 5 other people, it was now in its benefit to pay the fee to grab that. And they did. They grabbed the fee. And that's fine. That's fine with me. That's fine with the 4 other people. But it connected all of us. It connected all of us in this interesting way. I've also met people using this as a social media. Again, in the BSV blockchain, which is different from the Bitcoin that we're all used to thinking about, which is BTC. Bitcoin Cash is also sort of part of that history and solution. But I digress. So anyway, this again, like the other, this all runs on your machine, and it shows all of the steps to figure this stuff out. I went a different route. I have, I call the unspendable hack. I took somebody else's Python, forked it in GitHub, and made it into a tool where I could write more readable words. I have kind of a very simple word language where a base 58 language where all the letters that could be capital are capital, and then small letters have certain meanings, like the little x is a space. I have to use the little I and the little O. Anyway, I've posted a lot about that. I've posted a lot of that. It looks cryptic. I'm decided to call it McDougal now. But it is a different... Anyway, that's a digression. This script, though, helps you understand the process, right, of creating a Bitcoin address from... It's very helpful. And again, you can see the source code of all of this. And you can also see that parts of this, like references to certain things, just they're not there anymore. You know, in other words, you can see that the people who wrote this have sort of moved on. And it's my hope to not lose. I think that's one of the possible benefits and values of Web3 is to not lose. So if I can't do this, and I've been doing this a long time, all right? If I have to give up and do something else, I don't want us to stop. You know, these projects, like, for example, the Sealand, I believe it's, I don't know if it was Sealand, Maersk, or both, but there was a huge shipping project that used IBM's Hyperledger Fabric as, and this was going to revolutionize the world of shipping using blockchain technology. But you know what? One day we saw, I believe it was Sealand, said, oh, this is too expensive. It's not going to work. We're going to cancel the project. And the whole thing stopped. Okay, that to me, that's Web 2. You had a central guy that just gave up. In Web 3, especially if you can burn the stuff in the ledger, you never lose. You can always, somebody can always see what I've done. I can see what people before me have done. And you have a constant line of, you might say disruptors or innovators, but people that are passionate about this, who, if we individually fail, the whole thing goes on. And that's part of this video, is to capture this information. I'll put in the links, I'll put links to this, and I'll also put links to this into my system, so anybody that sees my forever wall would see this. Okay, thanks guys. Reach out and contact me. I'm trying to work in person here in Austin with various colleges. It is a process, and sometimes, I think it might be rare that outsiders come in and try to do this, so it might be confusing for people. But my motives are honest. I mean, I'm an Eagle Scout. I want the best, and I am passionate about this technology, because when our means of communication are compromised, as they are now, we have to think about alternatives. Okay? Thank you.